Hi, and welcome everyone to the next AI 42 event, the panel discussion about how AI changes the world. I'm so excited to be here back online again. It's been a while, right, Kosha and Håkan?
Yes, we are very busy, but we wanted to back with this panel discussion and ask our panelists what AI and how AI changing world based on last changes.
Yes,
I think
Håkan,
it's
would you like to
a
go into details there?
yeah. I was just saying. I think it's a very big topic and interesting topic, especially taking into account maybe the last 6 months explosion of both Chat GPT and GitHub Copilot and a lot of other things. So I think we are in for a really interesting evening here.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, it was like it's like you said, like a bomb, like an explosion. And I really hope that this panel will be like an explosion as well. So how about inviting our panels to talk speakers?
Yes. So let me invite our first panel speaker here is Emilie Lundblad, who is the managing director for MS the Nextbridge. Welcome, Emilie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Håkan, Gosha, and Eve. It's a pleasure.
Do you want to share a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been working with data for the past 12 years. I started like everybody else with trying to pull out data from systems and put it into Excel and then figuring out that wasn't a database. And then from there, I learned how to create databases, how to create integrations. And that went on to become an online startup where we had a lot of products online. And that opened my eyes to the world of data online and what could be possible, and also to the need to learn modeling or machine learning. So then I did a candidate, which was in quantitative math and econometric statistical modeling. And after that, I've been out working as a consultant within data and AI for the past 7 years, mostly focusing on Microsoft. And for that, I've now become Microsoft MVP, which was the delight for me this month. And Håkan, thank you also for nominating me this year to Hyperwrite's Data and AI 100. So that was also great. I've also done a minor in machine learning and AI from MIT, and I am right now finishing my master in IT management at the Danish ITU, where I'm writing my thesis on generative AI. So that's a bit about me. And then I have a small corgi called Molly and a cat called Charlie, and spend a lot of time working.
Yes.
Wow, what a story. Nice. Welcome, Emilie. So, how about inviting our next speaker, who is Sebastiano Galazzo, who leads teams focused on research and development of new AI and machine learning solutions. Welcome, Sebastiano. Would you like to share a few stories about the projects you work on and more about yourself? You're muted, Sebastiano. I think you're still muted. It's the double mute. Is there... Håkan, can you see something in the studio?
Yeah, sorry.
Now it works.
So, it happens sometimes. Well, I was telling that I deal with artificial intelligence and computer vision since 25 years now. So I guess that I gained a bit of experience that allowed me to win 3 AI awards. Thanks for the research. But for me, it's also a passion. And the last year, I'm working on digital twins. So maybe you remember the episode of Black Mirror. So creating yourself, your digital copy to interact with. And this is my main project now. Of course, I use generative AI and all kinds of algorithms related to deep learning, computer vision, embeddings, everything.
Yes, and I heard about this, the Maestro AI.
Yes, the Maestro AI is an architecture that we invented with our team that basically comes from the idea to save cost. Because as a CTO, we are fascinated by the last technologies, of course, so OpenAI, ChatGPT, but everybody looks just to the video on YouTube about the YouTuber showing how magic is it, and that's true. But when it comes to real life and you have to pay the bills, you realize that could be very expensive if you run a real business. Because for you, if you look at the cost of a very big prompt, because again, if we are not playing, of course, it could cost 2 cents. 2 cents could be nothing, but multiplied by 1,000, 10,000 queries per day, guys, it's a very huge cost. So the goal of Maestro AI is to use, let's say, all the technologies. Old, it means 6 months ago in our world, of course, but combined in a smart way, we can reach the same results, saving cost. So Maestro AI, what this does basically is an AI that manages other AIs. So controls other AIs. So the goal is instead to use a very big, large language model, something smaller, controlled by another AI, and that allowed us to save cost. That's Maestro AI.
Wow, that really sounds amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, Gosha, why don't you invite our next speaker?
Yes, sure. So our next panelist is Robert Mulsov. He's a chief evangelist at contexxt.ai, Microsoft MVP, and specialist in Office 365. Can you tell a little more about yourself?
Sure, yeah, thank you. And I'm really happy being here. So thank you for having me. And I had a very great introduction already. So just to add, I'm really digitally addicted, I would say. So everything that's new, it's for me, I'm very optimistic, and I think it brings something positive for us and for the human being. And yeah, especially I'm brainwashed with Microsoft since 15, 20 years now. So it's just that I'm coming from this ecosystem, being also MVP in this field. And yeah, what brings me to AI actually? So I'm working for Context AI. So what are we doing? So we look with technology, so with artificial intelligence, we look into the context of users, how they learn, how they improve their career. So you can measure what people are doing good, what they are not doing that good, and based on this, you can then tailor a learning experience and really measure what kind of learning has a better impact, was it a worse impact, and so on and so forth. So with technology, with artificial intelligence, we can achieve so much more even as humans, so we don't have to fear it. We should just use it. And this is what we are doing, and we're doing this e-coaching. So we are in the business of ed tech. And yeah, with that, I'm happy to share now my experience. And one personal thing, I would say I'm also a professional ice cream tester. Not with a diploma. I'm just loving ice cream. I'm eating so much, so that's why I would say I have some skills there.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And for sure, learning with AI, it will be much, much easier and better to just explore the world for everyone. And we have the last speaker. It's Stefanie Log. She is ex-AI MVP, now currently working in Microsoft. Could you tell a little more about yourself, Steph?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'm currently working at Microsoft, coming up a year and a half. I'm masquerading in the software space, in app innovation, as we help put in AI into all the things. Before that, very much a data person, started very similarly to Emilie, of had data in Excel, needed more data, do more things, learned SQL, worked my way from there. And quite early on, realized that there was a point to my to the statistics when I was in high school and college, that it was much more useful when you weren't just using like a chi-square table for 30 people's heights in your class. Seeing 8 million customers and being able to work out how you can make a positive difference in their lives was when data science and statistics really kind of kicked in for me. Since then, I've done all sorts of things, and most recently, before joining Microsoft, trying to get AI into the hands of manufacturers, using a lot of Microsoft's brilliant technology, but failing at the big hurdle of them being in the cloud. So it was a big lesson that I learned over the past few years, is that we need AI inside software, inside our day-to-day tools, but we also need to help bring the benefits of the cloud more generally to more smaller, medium businesses, for them to be able to own, build, and get value out of AI that is completely within their control. Oh, and I have 3 dogs, Obi, Leia, and Dobby. And you may hear Leia snoring behind me, depending on how loud she gets with this.
Yeah, so you have a very great experience in all statistic AI, and yes, you are a great person for today's debate.
Yes, so welcome everyone, and I think it can I ask the first question?
Yes.
So
And before we start, we can also say
okay.
that, to the audience, that you're very welcome here to come with your own questions. So just post any question that you have in the chat.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Håkan. Yes, because we can ask anything from the panelists today. And remember that it means anything, really. So let me start with the first question. Please, everyone, could you please share some of your experience you had with generative AI?
So when I was running my startup, I was technologist, CEO, and wearing all the different hats, and also needing to do our marketing. And as you can imagine, I had very little free time. And I actually started using AI to even just like simplify my marketing experience. So I had AI helping me write my blog posts. And then once I'd published the blog post, I had automation that would trigger another AI service that would read my blog post and be able to draft a video summarizing it and put in all the stock videos, and be able to produce that, so then I could post that on YouTube and be able to get things done. So even just that, like throughout my day-to-day, we'd use AI to try and generate voiceovers and all the things that we could simplify our day-to-day experience and make us more productive and fight smarter as a startup. So I was very happy with how AI could make a difference, as well as for my coding.
Very cool, very familiar.
I think we're all so kind, we don't dare to speak out loud. So I would say ladies first in this round when we talk about our experiences. Or what would you say?
Thank you so much. So for me, it really started about three and a half years ago when I joined WPP, the world's largest marketing and media organization. I was working in the headquarters in the Nordics called Group M. And we were working on helping some very big brands understand customer behavior online. And for that, we were using some of the first larger language models. So first we started with BERT, then we used the Roberta, there was also a Scandinavian version to understand what people were saying online. And then from there, we wanted to understand how did it relate to the pictures and how did people react to it. And then I actually became part of the innovation team across EMEA. And there we worked a lot with generative AI for generating images and video, because it costs a lot of money to create an advertising picture or a video. And if you can create even just the start of it to test it on customers or users, that is a lot cheaper. So we had an example where somebody had created a commercial for a car, and it was the wrong commercial, and we'd spend 5 million Danish crowns or more on this commercial, and it wasn't the right one. And that really kickstarted that we wanted to be able to create generative AI videos and also images, but also have the understanding of what is in the video, what is in the image, and how are people reacting to it. From there on, it went into also generating text and using it for dynamic advertisement. And then I went on to work with Maestro Nextbridge, and there we were using similar technology, also large language models. We used it for similar purposes for some of the big Nordic companies that do brand surveillance. And then from there, it went on to a very big project with the fact-checking organization in Norway called contexxt.ai, where we're actually using generative AI to understand all the news that are coming out, prioritize them, but also figure out if we can fact check them and how to fact check them. And that's how we got started on working with all the OpenAI models. And it opened our eyes really to what can you do with Whisper when it comes to transcripting what people are saying, even in the parliament in Norway, what can be done with Clip to comparing images and text, what can actually be done in order to make generative text better at fact-checking or reasoning. And so this became a whole journey on its own. And from there, I've been doing so many talks and working with it, and it just exploded. And now every day is generative AI. I've been teaching WPP how to use GitHub Copilot. I've been teaching them how to use DALL-E, OpenAI in Azure. It's gone into being both voice and images and text and coding, and I can't see a day go by without working with generative AI. So it's been an amazing journey, and a bit like a rocket ship this year, really.
I agree with you. You can do so much more with AI, actually, with this generative AI to get things done. Let's call it this way, especially when you mentioned this coding. And let me pick up my story also, because as I said, it's about education as well. And we also have code, so we write code for our AI. And when our developers tried it out, ChatGPT, how it works, and sure, there's this normal thing here, tell me how to create a team, what to do, or something like this. This is super easy. But when we go into code, you know these examples, write me code of something. But take the other perspective. So explain me something. This is what they started. So they copied some code, what we wrote into this, and asked ChatGPT, explain me, what is this code doing? And our developers were so amazed. This is so right. We couldn't make it even better to make comments on this. So it's really great they used it. And sure, there were a couple of commandlets that are available across different repositories and libraries in the internet and so on and forth. But, and this was the great thing, we also wrote our own commandlets, our own special procedures. And even for those things which are actually not in the internet, but we just provided it, hey, explain me what this thing is doing. Even this was correctly anticipating what these special procedures are doing, what our own commandlets are doing. So, and this was kind of, wow, what can generative AI do for us to really help us learning, understand complex things? And this was for us kind of an eye-opener, what we want to build on.
Well, what to say? You are everybody fan of Copilot. From my side, instead, just to start a discussion, I'm not a big fan of Copilot, because it's also true that it's amazing from one side, there's no doubt. But also I see mistakes every day with the generative AI that could be generating languages, text, or images. And so again, as a CTO, not always I would be so confident to use suggestion text coming from this kind of tool. because as you know, they tell you like it was the truth coming from event, and sometimes you believe on that. So if we generate a sentence maybe is not that wonderful in our chat, sometimes is not cool, but anyway, if the mistake is inside our code, could be more painful. So I don't want to say do not use Copilot. This is not the message, but also that we must be aware and still use our head. I guess that we are still not so ready to be to trust at 100% this kind of tools.
Absolutely, and I think I would actually be worried when it gets close enough that it feels like 100% accurate, because right now it makes errors frequently enough or isn't as good fit enough that people hopefully stay aware that, you know, it's an assistant, it's not a replacement, because we should be spending the time on the problem definition, on making sure that we build the right kind of pseudocode or framing for a solution, and then use Copilot to help us get to that solution more quickly, as opposed to just allowing Copilot to write the whole thing for us without us putting that human in the loop to say, is this the right thing? So yes, we need to make sure that our devs, our BI developers, and all of us don't get lazy and just start accepting it as the truth and 100% accurate.
Yeah, laziness is dangerous always.
Yes, very much so.
We should definitely learn to be more critical with whatever we get there, to then also value, can this be right or not? And I'm not talking about fake news or so, but in general, when AI is generating something for us, we still need the skills to understand, could this be right or not? And this is something we really need to be aware of.
And it's a skill people should hopefully have been getting when using Stack Overflow and search on GitHub, but it's something that we should definitely reinforce.
And I think this is a nice segue here into our next question here, because right now OpenAI and Copilot and these type of technologies are everywhere around us, it seems, and it's used in many types of different services. It can be used from anything from generating a text to a school assignment or just design a building, and many types of use cases. But the question is, how can we actually use these technologies in a responsible way?
When I can pick this directly up here, because how to be responsible means like to use it in a good way, and what we just heard is that not everything is correct, and when I look around, also when other people write articles and so on, all those people also can be biased. For example, I remember one article which was from this user totally against Microsoft, and therefore whatever Microsoft's doing, it's bad. But this was officially in the public television, for example. So I wouldn't say that it was responsibly from this guy. And this is the same with technology and with artificial intelligence, that this can be biased, but we have to be critical with this, and to use it responsibly is, I would like to treat not only technology, so everybody, but also technology in a good way. I should have good manners or good reasons why to use it to support me, and I think when the world is changing to that way, that we only want positive things, then we automatically use it maybe responsibly. That's my opinion.
So I think from an academic point of view, we always, one of the first things we learn is to think critically and to question whether something is true. And I think that is really important when using generative AI. So far, I haven't seen any solution, whether for code or for generating text, where it's picture perfect. If I look at the work that's being done at the moment at the AI Pioneering Center, it's all about being better at explaining the reasoning, understanding where information is coming from, understanding how to improve the logic, and also make it more correct. But I haven't seen any solutions where it's a good idea not to have a human in the loop, whether it's for writing articles, ad forums, or it's writing code. Also, it doesn't always, even if you're prompted really well, it doesn't always understand the context. A very easy example is if you're using your GitHub Copilot, it doesn't know your environment necessarily. So it doesn't always know what will be working in what Python environment and what won't be working. So I think critical thinking is the number one thing I advocate. Check the facts, check your code, check the references and what it's writing. And then don't fully trust it. That's not where we're at. And I agree completely with Stefanie. That's also a very good thing because where would the work go? So it is a co-pilot. It's helping us, to get there faster, but not necessarily do the work.
Yes, for sure. So talking about school assignment, for example, I guess that the responsibility is in both sides. So I believe that is a tool, for example, ChatGPT, and like a tool, of course, must help you. Well, I consider the school like a gym. So it means that a gym for your brain, for your future. Well, if you cheat and you use a tool just to pass the exams with a high score, anyway, said that the life will be honest more some days. So because for example at the university there were a lot of great guys with high scores that were able to repeat everything just using memory but understood nothing. So if you use this kind of tool not understanding what you are studying, it's your fault, in my opinion. And that easy to create test solution to understand if you really know what you studied. So it's not a fault of OpenAI, of course, in this case, I guess. But again, maybe laziness or maybe that of teacher of that they are still not ready to this kind of tools. But it's possible to understand if someone really understood what he studied or not. That is that he used, and if he used the OpenAI to understand, that's okay, in my opinion. But I think it's up to school. Sorry.
Yeah, I think plagiarism and kind of rote using ChatGPT are going to be a challenge for us for a while. But I think it's partly how we think about education. Previously, access to the details, to the facts of how things worked could only be passed on through books and one-to-one teaching. School these days could be more about preparing you for problem solving and being able to learn things more rapidly, and bringing your own critical thinking and opinions and deriving novel conclusions. Right now, we force people to have the same dry academic style, to build papers the same way, to not bring their own authentic person to knowledge and to things. So we can change how we do education so that whether ChatGPT writes something or not matters less than the skills they employed to write it, to capture it.
Absolutely agree.
And on that note, there has been a very interesting research paper from MIT looking into the impacts of actually using generative AI for writing. and where you do see that people get higher grades for writing essays and they do become more productive. So they're better at matching this style that you mentioned, the academic style of essays or writing papers, but they still have to do the critical thinking of, is this the correct theory? Am I applying it correctly? And there you can't trust ChatGPT to fully understand any of the implications of scientific theories. And it's really important that you focus your time then on understanding how to apply it. But I think it might be useful that you also get a help to actually write even better. I sure would like academic papers that was more well written and easier to read, but that might just be me.
Yeah, I think it will be good to ask here, because we have this all copilots, we have in the code, we have now coming to Office 365 where we can generate more and more. We have Power BI, Word, Excel, etc. So who copyright all of the text was generated or code generated?
I think we need here clear governance guidelines, especially when talking about GitHub. You simply publish your content. It depends. So if you have a private GitHub, then not. But when something is public, it should be available for everyone. And also the Copilot and other language models should benefit from this to inspire others again to build then even the next one based on this. So in my opinion, we should have their real clear guideline also for these different models that are trained on data. Can this data be used for training or not? And this must be really written down or in whatever form we have it, but we should then really align with those kind of governance rules.
Yes, but I guess that it depends on the case, because if you're talking about art, I can understand that as artist, I could be not happy that my work is used for training. But if talking about code, in my opinion, for example, is not so that different than cut and paste from Stack Overflow. Just changes the tool. That in one case we have the old style website, but on the other case a tool that is newer but doesn't change. So nobody says that code, that work is mine and put it into Stack Overflow. Of course, again, it's different if it's music or if it's art. I guess that we need to separate different cases.
I agree. When you have it on Stack Overflow, then it's depending on the license, but then it's publicly available. And therefore, from a governance perspective, I would say, okay, I now provided it, it can be used. If I don't want that it can be used, then I should not make it publicly available on those portals. Or it should be kind of fine-grained permission control, whatever. Just my opinion, as I said.
Yeah, I think we very much kind of rapidly moved into this new area of technology that our licensing and AI, generative AI, is a completely unforeseen use case for the use of data that code that's MIT licensed or GPL and things, and we do need to think collectively around open source. How do we better approach our code as something, whether it goes into large language models or not? And then we also, kind of continuing my theme of personal responsibility, where businesses and individuals were adopting a new technology, that we're finding the new use cases, finding the edges for it every day. And so we need to be thinking very critically about where are our risks, where are our value, and how do we manage and mitigate that risk to be able to use it appropriately. Because we should never remove risk, but we should always manage risk as an organization.
Yeah, well said. It's maybe also about, not sure if it's fit, but democratizing data and democratizing knowledge. And this is also a decision. So, hey, I got inspired from other developments, from other code, from other whatever, and maybe I also want to inspire back, or the other way around, and so on and so forth. But certain things, of course, it's corporate identity of companies, and keep it in your company then, because this is your CIA then in the competition. But for some general information and yeah, whatever you think it's worth to share with the world, we should more think into that direction to really move the world, the human beings forward, and not only think about ourselves company-like, while keeping the CIA, of course. So it's about balancing, as you well said, Steph.
Yes. Also, I guess that we need to separate knowledge from our point of view, because often they are mixed. Because, for example, we can create. We believe that the knowledge is clean, but you can create something related Leonardo da Vinci with his history, but also adding your critical view. So in this case, in your opinion, is something that owns to you, or is common knowledge? Because it changes, adding something coming from you.
So I think it's a difficult area, and we definitely need more legislation, especially when it comes to how much should be shared. On the other hand, looking at the history of innovation, we do see that the more knowledge sharing that has been done, the more value is created in society. And if we just look at Wikipedia today, nobody questions whether or not we should share all that knowledge. That being said, the most problematic I'm seeing at the moment is when you're creating songs, videos, pictures that looks like a specific individual, looks like a model, looks like an actor, sounds like an actor. So the protection of individual traits and individual thinking and your identity, that is something I'm very worried about, and I really would like to see some legislation addressing this area.
Yeah, in this case, I guess that it's easier. It's far way more difficult when it comes to ideas, because we can talk together about the same thing, about World War II, and including different point of view. So the knowledge is the same, but mixed with our ideas, change the content. And so in this case, we don't have the same protection tools like songs or images. And right today, at this day, I can't see a solution for that. Maybe it will come in a few months, I don't know. But I have to say that, in my opinion, today, there's no way to protect, if you want, this kind of knowledge.
I hope there is, because otherwise, one of the things that I love the most about Copilot and GitHub, but also ChatGPT, is that it adapts to what I've been doing. It learns from me. You can see very clearly that GitHub Copilot learns from your coding style and the languages you normally use, and that's great. But as it learns everything I do and all my processes and my thinking, I'm also wondering how much of that will be shared with the rest of the world, and to how large a degree can my way of working be copied in the future. So for me, it's a double-edged sword, where I'm wondering if Copilot is in all the products that I use all the time. Can you create a digital version of me that can start working for the company and I can just leave, or which is great but creepy, but who owns all my work that has gone into a generative AI model?
So that's a great question. And so like some of it, if you use like the Azure OpenAI piece, then your data is ring fenced inside your own solution. It doesn't get added to the to the base model. It stays within your tenant and things like that. But there is the solid question that links back to the fact that almost everybody in their contract has a question about the IP that we create day to day inside our company. When we code, when we build things, that IP belongs to the company, and that actually can be something that your organization takes further and, you know, makes a work you potentially in future. I know Microsoft takes a strong stance against things that create that have a high risk of injustice, things like facial recognition, but certainly, you know, there's lots and lots of organizations producing AI technologies right now. It's not infeasible that somebody out there writes the digital U in the same way that when COVID hit, we had a surge in monitoring tools that said whether somebody was at their desk all day. It's a risk with the way that we write employment contracts and the way many executives think about their employees today.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, I was about to say that it was a great discussion. Thank you so much for all your viewpoints. And we have a question from the audience I would like to come up with right now. Thank you. So, in your opinion, do you have any concerns about using ChatGPT or Copilot regarding data protection and GDPR?
I think it perfectly aligns with what Emilie said already. So it helps us a lot, but where's this data going and what is made with this? It's a kind of a trade-off. Of course, it should help me, but I pay with my data on the other side. And I wouldn't say that we can't really have a concrete decision here or concrete opinion here, because everybody is the owner of their own data, and everybody should decide how much I'm able to give it away. And for now, we just need to trust that all the different companies who are running these large language models are really then protecting and keeping this data and in line with GDPR regulations. So it's possible to even change. We saw this from Italy, and then Microsoft did something, or OpenAI was doing something. But yeah, something we need to rely on these kind of policies then.
But many of our existing measures as organizations who need to be conscious of our GDPR processing should hold, whether it's an AI program or a SaaS product that you buy. You need to know how your people are interacting with that system and inserting customer data into it. You need to understand contractually how your vendors are consuming, storing, retaining, destroying that data, and you need to make sure that your contracts and GDPR notices for your customers are up to date. So it is a compliance challenge, but I think it's a compliance challenge that is known and will be, if you use an AI startup, you've probably got the same kind of compliance risks as a SaaS startup. Yeah.
I'm surprised that a lot of people still don't understand that when you don't pay for a product, you're the product. And when you use the open source browser ChatGPT, every prompt you send in there is information that can be prompted back out by all the other users. And I mean, we've got the Samsung case, we've got cases from other companies. I've even got some creepy examples of finding information about my own boss. So I think people should be aware, and this is what I tell all customers, if it could in any way be GDPR sensitive, do not put it into the ChatGPT browser. And especially now where we have the plugins that is actually third-party companies, and nobody can tell us exactly what's happening with the data, and it can be also in countries that does not apply to the same rules. So here I would ask people to be very, very critical and very careful with what they're doing. When you're using the OpenAI models on Azure, it's a different scenario. It's within the bounds of your company. You can delete the models again. It's within your own firewall, so it's not the same issues you're not sharing with the rest of the world. But when you are using the browser ChatGPT, you're sharing with the rest of the world, and you don't know what they're going to do with the data. So I think it's something that I want to keep highlighting and making people aware of, and to be super critical of. And I do think we need more legislation in this area. And I think it was good that Italy highlighted the problem.
Yeah, in fact, I think that we are very lucky in Europe having GDPR and European community that protect, or at least try to do that. But anyway, the truth is that at the end, the best way to protect yourself is your behavior. Because as you said, if you load a company document inside OpenAI, guys, there's no way that they don't use for training, and that's dangerous. So basically, you don't do that. I read an article 2 days ago. I haven't double checked, but I guess that should be true. That Google said to their own employer, don't use Bard because it's public. So it's the same company that avoids using this kind of tool. Of course, sharing very important documents. So again, in my opinion, at the end, you can claim to protection laws, tools, but you must be aware of these new technologies, and it's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, even Apple is blocking that people can use ChatGPT, and many banks are. So there is a huge issue here.
Yes, but I can't believe that people that anyway, okay, they don't have our technology background, but for sure I'm wrong, of course. But I guess that you work in an office, everybody turned on a laptop, a PC. You heard about ChatGPT everywhere. So it's unbelievable that there are so many people that are not aware of the risk of sharing internal knowledge with this tool. Well, what to say? Maybe that is clear for you, but for the audience, for people, I heard a sentence that was like that: if it's free or cheap, the product is you. So keep in mind that always.
Yes, and at the same time, we're also living in a world where we do have quite a lot of political tensions. We are seeing hacker attacks that are politically motivated. So it's also not a world where you should trust that all users of ChatGPT have good intentions.
Just one thing I want to clarify here. So these free solutions like ChatGPT or Bard, sure, all this data goes into one repository to train and to learn and so on. So this is what the people should be aware of, because you are the product, at least partly in this case, as Emilie perfectly said. But we should aim to also a way where each company can have their kind of own copy, their own repository of GPT, of Bard or whatever. And then this goes only into their own index and doesn't leave the boundaries of the company. And then, of course, you can use the advantages of these AI models and the power of AI without fearing that your data goes somewhere.
So, I mean, that's partly what you have with the OpenAI models on Azure, where you can train your own GPT-4, 3.5, or the models that you want. And to some extent, now that you have the collaboration with Hugging Face in Machine Learning Studio, you can actually take a lot of the open source information and use it in a way that is enterprise-grade security. So I think that Microsoft's work in this area has made that possible, or made it a lot more feasible for a lot of companies, which it wasn't 6 months ago or a year ago.
And I think, we're really going to have to, the risk of people putting data into ChatGPT, personal, confidential, we have a real problem with digital literacy. Like even, in well-developed countries, people generally have a much lower level of awareness of their cybersecurity, their online safety, protections for children, data content protection and things. That's a big gap. And even to the fact that people don't even realize sometimes video games have age ratings and give 18 rated games to children. And I think where generative AI is really going to continue bringing this to the forefront, that digital literacy is a core competency for the future. And we need it in schools, we need it for adults, and we need it for everybody in between. Because it's only going to get harder for people to live safely in a digital world without that basic literacy.
I agree, but who do you think has the responsibility to increase the digital literacy across nations?
There is the risk when you say everyone's responsible that no one's responsible. But I see we have our personal responsibility to maintain our skills and to kind of look after ourselves. I know a number of organizations, enterprise customers who are aware that, for instance, they might have low literacy rates inside their organization, core literacy, not just digital literacy. And so they have programs and initiatives, and they structure their communications and things in a way to help tackle some of the literacy gap. And organizations, when they do their GDPR onboarding and annual security reviews and things like that, could be taking this into account. And similarly, schools and governments can organize it and provide online literacy courses. I think Sweden did a great AI fundamentals a while back that they gifted to the world to help people understand what AI was about and its potential impacts. And we can do that. We can make things available to help people.
But now looks like OpenAI is the devil, but don't forget that we shared with our queries on Google our data since 2000 or even before. And so it's also correct to say that he's not the only one is stealing our personal data, and everything that we are saying about OpenAI that now looks like the bad guy is also true for other companies. So Google maybe doesn't use as OpenAI, yes, now as bad, but what it does with our data, I can't imagine.
So I have to say that in all the time I worked with the VPP and media and marketing data, I wasn't really worried about Google's use of my data. It didn't creep me out. What creeped me out was the social media platforms and their algorithms, because it's once we understand people's behavior and their attention patterns that we can really affect what they do and how they think. And that scares me. And what scares me then about OpenAI's models is that it can fully understand how I think, how I ask questions, it can almost predict what I'm going to do next. So it's once it understands our behavior and our attention patterns that it's scary, if that makes sense. And this is where I'm a bit worried about third world countries where they don't have a high digital literacy. Do they understand what they're giving away? How much can we affect democracies in third world countries through these tools? That's things that I'm worried about and I'm thinking about.
It can be scary, but it can also be helpful. Sorry, one last sentence. Because when we talk about advertising, which is also kind of understanding what we probably like, and I don't like, to be honest, but others may like because they get a good offer, what they were searching for, or something. So it's a case by case decision. Yeah, in bad ways it's bad, but it can also be helpful when we get understood better, also for mental health scenarios where we can raise those questions.
So I agree, but there is also a very good question over here in the comments, and one of them is: imagine you have kids, what would you teach them about generative AI? And at least when I was working with media and marketing data, this was what worried me. It was seeing how young people's behavior was changing. You look to a 13-year-old girl today, they do not look like when I was 13-year-old. Actually, they look closer to porn models when I was 13 than ever before. And this is advertisement. This is something that has been influenced by all the algorithms. And this scares me. It scares me what's happening with the younger generation, with their attention, and with their perception of what they should be and what their life should be like. And so if I had a kid this age, I would be very confused whether or not to even allow them to use these tools. On the other hand, I also understand that you have to, it's a competitive advantage for the future. So this is something I'd like to see politicians address. How do we actually protect the younger generations who do not have the critical ability to understand what they're doing yet?
You mentioned earlier the risks of deep fakes and things, and I think that that's definitely an area where I can see huge potential for cyberbullying and a lot of risk for young people. I think I'd probably be less worried about ChatGPT and its impact on children than, as you say, about social media and the dopamine traps built in to gamify their behaviors and to focus on likes and change how they present to the world based on how social media drives their interactions.
Maybe
But what's
our
the
parents thought the same 20 years ago about us.
is putting their lives online in social media. You can understand their way of speaking and thinking. You can scrape that information. You can put it into ChatGPT, and you can have it start generating a chat that they would respond to. And we're seeing increasing amount of fraudulent behavior in this direction, and that creeps me out.
Like access to IRC back in the day, and the fact that anybody could get on and pretend to be a child. Now they can do it more convincingly.
Yeah.
This is something we have to take care to be, try to be ethical in this case, and not only to be critical, but also it's really on us as the humans to bring these borders or to educate our children to use it in a good way, in a responsibly way, to really use it positively, and not just here get taught by GPT or something, and I'm out, I'm go for a beer or something like this. No, we should take this responsibly and really take and use this technology to simply make more things possible. But if we just think, okay, these AI will now take over and will do everything for me, this is the exactly wrong approach, and this is what many people probably also worry. And where the question comes, oh, will AI replace jobs and so on and so forth? Yes, definitely. But there are other opportunities, other chances to grow into. There are new jobs that we have, and these opportunities we should really take as an open-minded people.
Yes, but I guess that also it's very, very easy for us to say we need to talk with our child and to teach how to manage these technologies. But we are privileged because we work with technology. But I think to a lot of tons of friends, mother of friends of my child that doesn't have this kind of knowledge. They understand nothing. They can't teach. For example, I was in front of an ethical situation because I realized that using AI, generative AI, is it possible to nudify people. I managed that tool, and I said I will never do a session talking about generative AI because really it was scaring. But how many people knows that it can be done, or even that exists? So it's not that easy to say we need to talk with other children. We can do that, but a lot of people doesn't know even that something can be done. So how that people can teach to them?
And this is exactly the
I feel
question.
also the responsibility. I like to talk in the schools with guys, but of course, me, neither you can save the world. What is needed is a massive approach in spreading the voice, and not just some video on YouTube or some activities, because really there are millions of people that do nothing about that. They don't have the tools, even if they want.
I think that's
There's a
probably
point
the
there.
biggest problem is kids are often more technologically savvy than their parents. I remember being
Yes.
like 8
Kids
and
are more
teaching my mum.
technology than their parents that should teach to them. So, in which world a kid discover that there is a way to unify a classmate and say to his father or his mom, look what I can do.
And this is
So,
exactly the challenge.
this is
Technology is developing like this, but we can only learn like this or adapt to this only a little. And this is the thing we need to get in our minds, that we really need technology to also learn that fast, to adopt to all these quick changes, and have these new ways of thinking. And this is so critical that we have to do. And I think just with our human brains, it's not possible. We need the way of learning we had so far is not working on this, because then the impact will be too big, because there will some who succeed and some who will not succeed, even worse than that is currently at the case.
So I think the speed of the technological development is especially a challenge for legal development. So we cannot develop the laws and the guidelines fast enough to keep up with how fast AI and technology is developing. And so asking governments only to protect us is also not realistic. At the same time, we can also not teach our children fast enough. And, what then? How is our own ethics and humanity going to help us?
I can see that we could go on about these topics for days. I would be so happy to sit together again sometime soon and continue this discussion. We have so many more questions to talk about, but I am afraid that we need to close it now. So I hope the audience also enjoyed it as much as we did. We had a really, really important conversation going on here, and I really can't wait to. We will share the questions with the panelists as well, and we will make sure that all the questions get answered. So please check back on AI 42 soon. Is there anything else that I should mention here, Håkan?
No, I guess we can just wish or thank everyone here, both in the panel and everyone who turned up here in the audience, and also wish everyone a happy summer.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here and thought-provoking. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you a lot again to
Thanks,
our panelists
everyone.
as well. It was really, really great to have you. It was amazing to
Thank you
hear
very
your
much.
opinions.
And please stay a little bit on the stream here after our final things. Okay, so
All right.
have a good
Thank
one.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you soon.
Bye.